The play on the field, the court, and the ice is just one part of sports. Behind every game are the people hard at work so we can enjoy the action. They're the owners, administrators, agents, broadcasters, and vendors who bring the games to life. Meet them when you go Behind the Game with Patrick Klinger and Dave Bowden.
Welcome to Behind the Game, presented by the good people at Blaze Credit Union. I'm Patrick Klinger, president of Agile Marketing Partners, and alongside me today, I've got a very special guest co-host, April Seifert, the founder of Sprocket CX.
Yes.
Delighted that you're here. April, I've been a big fan of yours for a long time, and it's delightful to have you on the show.
You stole my line. I was going to say I'm like chairperson of the Patrick Klinger fan club, so this is Mutual Admiration Society today. Probably amongst all three of us, I would imagine.
A little bit left out right now.
I would imagine. Yeah, so today we are joined by Shari Ballard, who is coming up on your third season as the Chief Executive Officer of Minnesota United FC.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Well, this is actually my fourth sort of partial season. I just completed like my third year. It goes so fast.
Amazing. This is really interesting because you're coming up on your third anniversary, and this was not originally the industry that you were in. You had a pretty prolific career in retail.
Correct.
Of all industries.
A daily knife fight in a phone booth that I
Completely. So talk a little bit about, now that you've had experience in both industries, what's similar, what's different, what was surprising?
I would say, so I was at Best Buy for, I tell people, like 150 years. So I spent like 26 years there and started in stores and then ended in the U.S. business. But I would say there is way more similar than different, which usually surprises people. That's like from technology to sports, massive scale of Best Buy to relative small scale of Minnesota United. But it's if you spent a week with me, you would be like, oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff here that's familiar, because it really is at the core a people job. So we've got all the same sort of things you have in most organizations. We have customers, we call them fans. We have partners, we have facilities, we have budgets, we have marketing, we have sales, and then we have what we do, which is soccer and the fan experience. So it's a pretty good blend, I would say, of things that feel and felt when I got to the club very familiar. But also things that are new. The sport is new, and so that part of it I'm learning a lot. And the club, the sport is really involved in the community, and so that's been a pretty fulfilling part of it too. But I would say it's way more similar than different. The largest difference between the two is honestly the scale. It's not the industry. It's at Best Buy when I finished up. Well, when I started, I was in a store, so it's 110 people.
Right.
And the job of leadership at that point is just so physically in front of you, Like I knew everybody in the store. They knew me. I could see whether they were in a job that matched their gifts. I could see whether they were connecting with customers, whether they're learning, growing, which is like 90% of the job of leadership. So it was all sort of physically in front of me to see. And then somewhere between that and then when I finished at Best Buy, I had responsibility for like 100,000 people. So somewhere between 100 and 100,000, you stop knowing everybody directly, and the job of leadership isn't so much in front of you. It's sort of through layers and geographies. And so the challenge of scale from a leadership perspective was a fun one to try to figure out, but it can also lose a little bit of the intimacy in it. So I wouldn't trade my Best Buy days for anything. I had great people there and I learned a ton, but to sort of finish up my career, in a place where I do know everybody and they know me and we see each other every day, and on game day, we can see how what we're doing is working for fans or not. And so that part, I feel very fortunate. It's pretty cool.
It's really special.
To some, your hiring was a little bit of a surprise because you didn't have any professional sports.
To everybody except for like the 10 people that hired me.
You didn't come from a traditional sports background.
Nope.
Right? Did that present any challenges to you as you got acclimated to the job?
I would say the challenge probably was more before I said yes to the job. I've done a lot, even though I was with one company, I did a lot of different jobs over my career, and I sort of learned over time that the content of the area that you're responsible for is one thing, but the leadership of it transcends whatever the sort of content area is that you happen to be a part of. So that's always sort of been my view. I haven't ever in my career really felt that intimidated about going into an area where I wasn't like the one who knows everything, because I don't think that's the job of leadership anyway. It's like, I'm not going to, I mean, if you're great at something, I'm not going to come in and sit on your head and try to show you how I'm better than you. I mean, that's not the job. So so that was sort of my belief. But I will say, before I said yes to the job, the idea, and you were kind of pointing this out, but the idea from technology, retail, scale to sports, I wonder if that's a little bit of a bridge too far on that philosophy. So I just tried to really talk to people, who had insight into it and get a sense from them of, sort of what they thought, A, was needed, and B, sort of day-to-day life in sports was like. So by the time I said yes, I felt 95-ish% sure that leadership will translate. And then, like any job, you have to go into it knowing that you're going to learn a lot and that you need to learn a lot and sort of enjoying the learning of it, which I do. And so, yeah, I mean, I would say it wasn't that difficult. It's been really fun to learn it. There's a lot of people inside the club, as you would expect, who know sports. They know soccer. They've been in it their whole lives. And they've been, I think most people sort of had the same view. Like, we don't need a CEO who, played on the U.S. women's national team. Thank God, because I'm out. But, but we need a CEO who sort of knows leadership and knows culture and can understand, what we do and, help us achieve the next level of things we want to achieve as a club. So people were quite generous inside the club. And you were talking about Manny Lagos before we came on, and Manny's one of the people inside the club. He obviously knows soccer. He spent his whole life in it, played at a very high level. There's a lot of people like that who are really enthusiastic about teaching you things that you don't know, and so no, it's been pretty good, I would say, in that sense.
That's amazing. I don't think I probably have to say that women in sports are having a bit of a moment right now.
They're having a great moment, aren't they?
So incredible.
Yeah, it's
but
fun
I
to see.
feel like a lot of the attention gets put on, naturally, female athletes and what's happening with women's sports on that side of things. But the same shift is happening behind the scenes as well. And you're a great example, being the first, woman serving in a CEO position in the MLS. How did that feel to you as you came in? We've talked about the challenge between the two industries, but this is potentially a lot of pressure.
Well, first of all, when I said yes to the job, I didn't really know that was going to be a thing. I hadn't really put much thought into it. And I think I've been probably pretty fortunate most of my life in that I'm very happy to be a woman, but I don't really start with that. Like, I don't get up in the morning and, drive to work and say, okay, I'm a woman entering work, and then sort of filter everything through that lens. And so I don't think I felt or feel like, oh my God, because of that, I have to do more. I mean, I don't really feel that way. How I do feel, though, is I really want to do the job in a way that a wide range of people can see themselves in it. Mm-hmm. Because there's just a lot of, this isn't just in sports, this was definitely true on the business side and in retail too, where there's sort of these ideas of what leadership looks like, and it's sort of this leadership out of central casting, where it's this charismatic, sort of larger than life people who sort of know everything and are never messy, and and it's just such a joke. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just a joke. It's true. Because it's not how it is at all. And so I felt this way at Best Buy. I definitely feel this way in this job, where I really want to do it in a way that if you're not from sports and you see that we're successful with a CEO who didn't grow up in sports, that's great. If you are from sports, maybe there's something in sort of the style of how I do it where you can kind of see yourself in it. If you're just starting out in sports and you're young, which we have a lot of people like that at our club, to see somebody who's, I started in a store, and then I, ended up doing cool stuff at Best Buy, and now I'm in sports. So to me, I think it's more about doing the job in a way and leading in a way that a broad range of people can see themselves being successful in it, including women. But I don't really see it sort of limited to that. So I guess
fantastic.
That's how I've approached it. Yeah,
I love that.
You mentioned that you started in a store. You started your career in a store. you've got a really fascinating career journey. So if you could walk us through a little bit of how you started in a retail store in Michigan.
Yeah. I'm thinking only my mother is interested in this. But
No, I've heard it a couple of times, and I think it really is a fascinating story.
Thank you. Yeah, so I grew up in Michigan. Grew up in Gaines, Michigan, which is very small. It's actually a village, not even a town. So very small community. When I graduated from high school, I went to the University of Michigan Flint, and probably like most people, I had to work while I went to school. So I worked at a place called MC Sporting Goods, which I think there might be like one of them left or something, but you have to sort of think Dick's Sporting Goods, but maybe 10,000 square feet and not as much women's clothing. That was sort of MC Sporting Goods. So I started there while I went to school. When I finished up my degrees in social work. So when I finished up my degree, I was like, okay, gotta now get a real job now that I've got my college degree. So I gave my notice. And then they just talked to me about, we want you to be a store manager for us. And I had seen, like the thing that was, there was a lot cool about that job, but the thing that was cool about it was the core group of people who were working there were also going to school. So there wasn't hardly any turnover in the store at all, but there was a lot of management turnover. And so one of the things that sort of became curious to me was that, like even, and I'm super competitive, but even my own performance would sort of get better or worse depending on like who the manager was. So this sort of idea of like the same group of people perform at different levels, sort of depending on like who they're with, but also who their manager is. So there's sort of the idea of that got planted when I was there. And so I always kind of wondered, well, if I was a store manager, you know, like would I be a good one or a bad one? So then when I had the opportunity to do it, I said, you know, I'm going to do it for 1 year and just be in retail for 1 more year and see if I'm good at it or not. And I was doing that still. I loved it. So I was still doing that a couple years later when Best Buy expanded to Michigan. And so the way they recruited at that time is they would go to different retail stores. If they found a good salesperson, they recruit them. If they found a bunch of good salespeople in a store, they recruit the manager. Very smart, actually. So I got recruited. And I think that when I look back, people are like, well, why did you even go to the interview? Because I really liked what I was doing at MC, but I think probably like my ego, you know, of somebody might want me, you know. Yeah. So I went to the interview, did everything wrong. Like I would tell people nowadays, I didn't know anything about the company or anything, but I went really liked the people, liked the culture. So I ended up getting offered a job. I said yes. So I started as the operations manager at store 411 in Flint, Michigan. That was 1993. And then company was growing a lot. I said I was there 26 years. Company was growing a lot, so it really created a lot of opportunity for people to do, you know, different things, and so I did a lot of different stuff, you know. And I ended up having responsibility for the U.S. business when I was done. So I had stores and .com and had a stint in international for a while, which sort of took me to places around the world I never thought I'd see. So yeah, very cool. Then I was like, okay, I was in my early 50s, I guess. You know, the only job sort of left was the CEO job, and at that point, Hubert Joly was in it, and he was doing it quite well. So it was like, and he was planning on doing it for a while. So I thought at that point, well, if I'm ever going to do something other than retail, I should probably do it now. And I'm not really one of those people that can be in a relationship trying to figure out what my next relationship's going to be. Like Like when I'm in, and then when I'm, you know, it's like at some other point I'll figure out if I'm gonna do something different. So I left Best Buy and just thought I would try to get more involved in the community. Was 100% sure I was never gonna take another operating job because it's like if I still wanted a big operating job, I would have stayed at Best Buy. You know, thought it was time to do something else, and that's what I was doing when serving on boards in the community when I got a call one day about Minnesota United. So it's just sort of, yeah, it's weird to think about it.
Swing and a miss at retirement.
Yeah, I would say,
so close.
Yeah, you're on the side of my group of friends who are all like, Shari in retirement. Okay, let's see how this is going to go.
How's that going to go?
Yeah, so it didn't last that long, but I would say, I mean, I don't know. I can't think of anything else probably that would have grabbed onto me to have me say yes to doing. I mean, I talked to some people when I left Best Buy just to sort of make sure I was done with big public operating jobs, and I really was. I ended up saying no to anything I got offered because it was just like, if I still want to do that, I'd stay at Best Buy. It's a great company. So it's hard for me at this point to think of anything else that would have sort of grabbed onto me and pulled me into it. But, you know, it's sports, it's the community, it's a really, really cool group of people. The ownership group is great. So, yeah, I just feel super fortunate.
I think that's a great story, and I think more people than just your mom will be interested in that. Because of what you said a bit ago around representation, I think it's very easy to look at somebody who's in a large position at such a visible brand and think, someone like me
Could never do that.
with my journey could never do that. So
Yeah.
even your story of saying, I started out at a store, helps people see, even if you're new in your career, there's a long path, and it can be, you know, a really winding
You
road.
know, it's
to get
interesting
there.
that you say that too, because to that point, there were a lot of people at Best Buy who, I think because of sort of the nature of how the company grew, had started out in, you know, sort of front lines roles and ended up doing a lot of really cool stuff. So there were a lot of examples there for me when I joined of how you can really do a lot here. So that was very cool. I will say I never, even with that, I mean, I sort of thought when I started, if I do really well, I'll be a store manager, then maybe be a district manager, and then if I'm like really fortunate, I'll retire sort of as a regional manager. So like the idea that it would be something other than that didn't really enter my mind. But I do remember one time I think I was a store manager at this time, so I was in my 20s, and we were at a sort of an all big company event, and Brad Anderson was our CEO at the time, and he was giving a talk from stage, and he was talking about leadership and sort of the different ways people lead. And, you know, here's Brad at this point. The company's doing really well. You know, Brad would say he wasn't really a CEO out of Central Casting, and I would probably say that too, but he was probably more the part, and everybody, you know, loved him. But I remember him standing on stage in front of like 5,000 of us as store managers, talking about leadership and talking about the range of people that can do it, and saying I was the fat kid who couldn't climb the rope in gym class. And it's like, you know, like more people than not, once they got to that place, might still be carrying that they're the kid in gym class that couldn't climb the rope, but they're not going to say it on stage in front of a bunch of people. And I remember that just sort of solidifying, like in my mind, like, okay, well, I mean, all right, you know, maybe we all sort of can do this. So I appreciate what you're saying.
Those stories are important. Let's talk fans.
Okay.
MLS fans.
In my normal life, I'm a raving fan too of other sports. So.
Great. I think a lot of other sports, though, would be a bit jealous of the fervor that MLS fans have during the game. If you've been to a game,
it's
I
very
mean, it
cool.
is just incredible and loud.
It's very cool.
That adds some pressure, I would imagine, with the performance on the pitch, wins, losses, and that really does seem to impact the fan base. How do you personally handle that?
Well, like, first of all, I hate losing. So, I mean, let's be honest.
You did say you were competitive.
Yeah,
so.
I am super competitive. Everybody in this, I mean, if you're in sports and your team loses, like, the Sunday or the Monday after a home or a loss, doesn't matter if it's home or away, everybody's miserable. Like, you know, at Best Buy, on the Monday after my Michigan Wolverines lost or something, I might be the only person that's sort of crabby about it, but when everybody's in it, you know, we're all kind of crabby about it. So, one, I would say, I hate losing. I'm not even going to lie about that. And it does, you know, like you wake up after game day and you're sort of immediately like, we got 3 points yesterday.
Yeah.
Or, you know, we didn't get points. So there's that you carry. But I think I try really hard in it, like with any job, honestly, or anything in life. I do try to keep a bit of a horizon view of things, just because in my own life, the things that have ended up being the most meaningful, like where I look back on them and I'm like, yeah, that was pretty amazing, all have sort of equal parts misery and then equal parts amazement. You know, so the things that, when I look back on my life, that I've been a part of that didn't really have elements of misery ever to them, it's kind of like, The things that I'm most proud of are like that, you know, where it was some elements of either personal misery or team misery or things you're like adversity that you're really having to fight through, or you really have to get tested and you learn things about yourself and you learn things about other people. And so I sort of am old enough, like I'm way older than most of the people at the club. I mean, I think I'm probably like the oldest person at the club, honestly, except for maybe like Bill, our owner. So it's like, I have a little bit, like I have more years on some of the folks. So like I know that and try to keep it alive in here. At the same time, I'm, either elated because we won or irritated that we lost. But, that's sort of the nature of sports, I think. And it's like a lot of times people like, listen, Shari, like when fans are like calling for your head or somebody else's head, like, what does that feel like? And it's like, well, I mean, let me start with, I would so much rather they're like so irritated about whatever they want to be irritated about than they're apathetic. Like,
Right.
I think the worst thing you can have in sports or anything, but the worst thing in my view is apathy. Like in a relationship, apathy is the worst. In life, apathy is the worst. So I'd rather have the sort of energy, regardless of sort of whether it's positive or negative, although I do myself like it more when we're winning, as we all do. But I try to just keep some perspective because, in other sports, I'm a maniac fan too. So, I'm the one sitting on the couch, screaming at the AD at Michigan to let you know what I mean? So it's like, I sort of get it, and you just have to kind of appreciate the fact that fans care enough about the team to be mad when they don't think you're living up to expectations. And by and large, like, I don't have anything to complain about. Our fan base, and I can brag on this because I didn't do it. It was there when I got to the club, but our fan base is amazing. I mean, we have great support from season ticket members. We do very well selling out our games. The thing I love most about fandom in soccer, to your point, is we don't do any pre-program, like there's no public address announcer like chanting to the fans, okay, everybody stand up and clap. Like there's nobody orchestrating what fans do except for the supporter group in the end of our stadium in the Wonderwall. They set the tone for all that. The only time you'll ever hear our announcer is the lineup, and when somebody scores a goal, we'll announce who scored the goal. But other than that, the noise in the stadium is all supporter started almost always, and then fan generated. So it's got it's sort of got an organic give and take to it that kind of comes and goes with the feel of the game that I think is absolutely lovely and pretty cool to be a part of too. So I think that's probably been the thing that, like, of all the sports I've ever sort of been to as a fan, that's the thing to me that's the most amazing and interesting about soccer.
It's unique.
Yeah, it's very cool. And the fact that, our supporters care enough to like do that, to take it on, to take on the responsibility of it, to sort of read what's needed. That part's very, very cool.
The Loons do sell out every game.
Yeah, our Bryant and our ticket sales team is going to be like, don't make it sound like tickets aren't available, and it's so easy. But we've got, they work hard.
Tremendous support.
Yeah,
right?
we do.
But the players aren't household names.
No, for a lot they're not. You're right.
In Minnesota, you probably know who Byron Buxton is.
Yep, definitely.
Right? You know who Justin Jefferson is, but you may not know any of the players on Minnesota United. How important is it that you establish a relationship between the players and the fans?
This is a very good question, and it's part of what we're trying to figure out, to be honest. Because you're 100% right. If you're a fan of the team, you'll know the players, and the players will be known in the community. The scale of the fan base is relatively smaller compared to what you get with the Timberwolves or the Vikings. They play more games. They're just, the scale of what they do, their reach is bigger than where we are, both from an MLS perspective and then Minnesota United itself. We're in year 7, so we're relatively young at this too. And one of the bigger opportunities for us is to really do a better job of creating fans who aren't already in the stadium on game day. And I think the point you're raising is almost always the way that happens. It happens with fans knowing players, sort of you guys were talking before about stories, sort of falling in love with the stories of players. And your team has to perform, and you have to do a good job with the fan experience. But the players, and I say this to the players, the players are the ones that the fans care about. Like they only care about me in so much as they think I'm doing a good job of supporting getting great players here. But otherwise, I'm not the face of Minnesota United. The players are. And so, and the thing that sort of stinks about the fact that so far they're not really well known broadly is they're really great guys, because they're not, the sport isn't sort of at the level of the NFL or the NBA or any of the other pro sports, meaning most of these guys are going to have another job after they get done playing, professional soccer in the U.S. And so they don't have sort of an inaccessibility to them. They don't act minted in certain ways, like you sometimes can see with professional athletes. Not all of them, but you can see it a lot. So in that respect, it's also sort of I feel like we have more of a responsibility to try to help get these guys out there, because in addition to being really great soccer players, they're good human beings. They do a lot of stuff in the community that our fans know about because they pay attention to it, but more broadly, it's not. Soccer in this community isn't really covered broadly in the media either. And so there's just a lot of really cool stuff like that that's happening with these guys in the community that doesn't have the same sort of light shed on it that happens in other sports. And yes, we do see that as part of our responsibility to figure out how to grow the engagement of fans outside the stadium. We do call the stadium experience the closer. So like once we can get somebody in the stadium for a game, we got them. Oh, yeah. It's just getting people there.
That's amazing. You've said a number of times, both about the team you work with, now the players, just what great human beings they are. And it makes me wonder about the values, the philosophies of the organization itself, and what those might be to help, propel the success of the organization.
Yeah, this is sort of another one of those areas where it was built when I got there, so it's sort of fun to talk about. How great it is to now be a part of it, because I didn't do it. So the mission of the club is to promote soccer, essentially, and use the platform that is soccer to inspire and unite the community. That's the mission of the club. And it's best manifested for me in two ways. One, game day is a beautiful example of it. I mean, it's perfection. Like game day in the stadium, you have people from all different backgrounds, all different ages, all different walks of life. We have one thing in common, except for the teeny weeny little away supporter section, but everybody else has like one thing in common, and that's the team and the team winning. And the energy there, the vibe, the kids, the families, the all kinds of different people is like, man, that is main of what we're trying to do. So it definitely shows up there, and then it also shows up in the community work that we do. The club is super ingrained in the community. Almost all of our corporate partners are with us in part because we have aligned goals in terms of what we're trying to do to have positive impact in the community, and we do some really cool stuff with our partners. Like, I mean, I could go on. We could do a whole different show on that, honestly, because it's just amazing. And so I think if you sort of reverse engineered out of that and said, what is it that the club is about? I mean, it is about broadly being inclusive, not like superficial, but like really broadly inclusive of all kinds of different people and perspectives. That way, out in the community, but also internally, people in the club would tell you there's probably not one day that goes by that they don't hear me talking about collaboration and kind of coming at things, understanding like, okay, what are you good at, and what can you see that I can't, and then how do we put that together in a way that we do amazing things together. There's a competitiveness, which you probably picked up on. there's a competitiveness and a winning component to it, and all the things you would expect from an integrity and sort of a person-to-person type way of doing things. But I think, to me, the pillar value system is the wanting to be with other people who all have different sort of things that they bring, and use the sport to inspire people and bring people together. And that's the crux of the club.
It's amazing.
Sure, you have another hour or two, because I got a lot of questions I'd like to ask, but unfortunately we're out of time. I mean, you what a fabulous guest and so insightful. And
you guys ask good questions, that makes it easy.
Great. Terrific. I'm not sure Dave Bowden's getting his job back.
I mean,
well, what's the over-under on the retirement there? That's what.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Is he going to stick in the first time?
Yeah. Thank you so much for co-hosting with me.
You bet.
And thank all of you for watching Behind the Game, presented by Blaze Credit Union. We'll see you again next month.